open. Clark in front, save, rebound, they score! Alex Turcotte, he scored big goals in this building before, and he ties this thing up with 15:33 to play in period one.
You're listening to All the Kings Men, the official podcast of the LA Kings.
Kings will take it away, and LaFerriere skates the other way, evades one man, got Turcotte in front, LaFerriere for Turcotte, backhander save, rebound, score! LaFerriere, a short-handed goal.
Now, here's your host, Jesse Cohen.
Welcome back, Kings fans. I'm Jesse Cohen. This is All the Kings Men. As some of you may have read on various social media platforms, I am no longer an employee of the Los Angeles Kings. If that's not something you care about, then don't worry. All the Kings Men will continue on. You don't need to subscribe anywhere new or change anything. The show will keep existing with me as the host, and the access to the club, the players, the coaches, etc., blah, 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 shouldn't change. The show might take a slightly more independent tone moving forward. I know some of you are excited about that, but I would caution you, don't get too excited. This won't turn into some doomer podcast where I just curse and swear and rant all the time. However, if you are one of the people who have reached out to me expressing interest in supporting my efforts to cover the team independently moving forward, it's all a bit of a work in progress at the moment, but the coverage will be multimedia. It'll feature multiple contributors, many of whom you may be familiar with already. I'm very excited about all of it. I think this is going to work out for the best for everybody, myself, the club, and more importantly, the fans. I think this is going to be fine for everybody. Their website, where you can find my coverage as it evolves, is theroyalhalf.com. Yes, I'm the owner and operator now, and yes, the Royal Half will be making more regular appearances. I know it's confusing. The Royal Half is a person. It's also a website. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. But if you do know what I'm talking about, I hope you're excited. I hope you'll join us and me moving forward. But as I said before, All the Kings Men continues on as it has. No changes. You don't need to do anything. Stay subscribed. New episodes will appear. All right, enough of all that. Here's the new episode. All right, it's kind of some house cleaning, I guess. Now the training camp is, I believe we're recording this on the 22nd of September, which is the 5th day of training camp. Joining me today, Zach Dooley. How are you doing today, Zach?
Jesse, I am tired, but good. You?
Yeah.
Tired, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, very. Way too much stuff on my table right now, between car stuff, health stuff, work stuff. It's just a lot.
That's why you got to do some house cleaning. Just got to clean up that table.
Exactly. So we're going to start with Anze Kopitar announcing that this will be his final season in the NHL. It didn't come as a huge shock. This is one of those announcements where maybe he didn't ever say explicitly the words, "This will be my final season." But I feel like 2 years ago when he signed the 2-year contract extension, or I guess a year ago, not 2 years ago, or maybe he signed the extension 2 years ago. I don't remember. But I mean, I feel like this is well-trod ground. People have asked him questions adjacent to this subject. They've asked him, what are your plans when you are done? He's talked about, is it a possibility that I'm done? I feel like most people just sort of assumed that this would be his final season, but now we have an actual statement.
Exactly. And we're going back, I think, what was it? Summer of 23 exit interview where he kind of said, like, he signed the 2-year extension 1 year out. So he signed it for 24, 25, 25, 26, but with 23, 24 still left on the existing deal.
Right.
And was pretty much like, look, I don't know for sure, but like this definitely could be my last contract. So we've had 2 full years of like the will he, won't he thing, but always in the back of everyone's mind, it was kind of like, I don't think a guy like Kopi would just say that if he wasn't already thinking, like he's not just going to baselessly.
Well, and I can't remember
when.
I can't remember when. Maybe it was Dennis Bernstein who asked him, I think. But somebody asked him, what are your plans for post-career? And he said, we're going back to Slovenia.
Yep.
And don't know if the house is still on the market, but at some point over the last 2 years, there were articles posted about his house in Manhattan Beach going on the market. Like the signs were there.
For sure.
And also just the simple reality that nobody plays forever. And he's reaching that age where players consider retirement.
And he's one of so few players who still has it, and it's like going into it, he still had, his 20 goals, his 60 points, his other good stuff, all the good things that he brings at this age, he still does it, in that way. And maybe, going out on top, I think there's something to be said for that rather than kind of fading away into the sunset. And, we don't know what this season will bring, but if last season is an indication, like, guy can still play at a very high level, which is awesome. So look, it'll be, I could see the pros and cons of, like, do you announce it now or do you wait? You're getting the questions probably either way. It's just like, now at least there's a certain answer to it. Whereas before, if you have to just pretend the whole year like you don't know, that's probably just a pain. So it's good to get it out there. And, honestly, if anyone's earned the right to just do it the way that he wants to do it, that is the guy, right? Like, he has earned every right to do exactly what he wants to do. And I'm glad that he was able to.
I'm probably making this up, but just off the top of my head, it's also helpful to not only the organization, but also teammates who he presumably cares about and is friends with. Like, Adrian Kempe is still negotiating his contract. Andrei Kuzmenko has to figure out what he wants to do. And then the following year, the club has to figure out what they want to do. Drew Doughty has to figure out, not that his contract is ending, but you know what I mean? Like, there are veterans on this team who will make decisions in the near future. And knowing this, there won't be another year of Anze Kopitar. It's there's no such thing as too much information. Although I suppose paralysis of analysis, whatever. But the point is, like, yeah, this could be helpful. And he said it in his press conference. He didn't want it to be a distraction. And yes, there will be, inevitably, when he goes to Montreal for the last time or New York for the last time, there will be reporters in those markets who show up and ask him how great it has been to play in their market for however many years.
100%. Yeah.
That's so much easier to answer than what you're going to do at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
for sure.
So, yeah.
Or like dancing around it, trying to get the same quote, like, I don't know, will this be your last time playing at Madison Square Garden? One of those things. But on the non-sentimental side, like, it's equally important for the Kings, right? Like, they have to know when they're negotiating with Adrian Kempe, like,
how much
are we
money's gonna be
factoring
available?
in X amount of dollars for Kopi or not? So I'm sure that he had communicated to the organization before Thursday, hey, I'm done at the end of the year. Know this kind of going into this year, like, you have me and I'd like to give it a go, but also know that you won't have me next year. And as you build your roster, like, build accordingly.
And, it's funny. It's, on the one hand, it's a very simple piece of news. Okay, we sort of saw this coming, whatever. On the other hand, it spins off. I mean, we could probably do an entire 10 question episode on, the top 10 questions that are facing the LA Kings in the final year of Anze Kopitar's career. Like, will he be the number one center the entire season, right? Like, there were games down the stretch last year where Quentin Byfield played more. This was well discussed during the first couple of days of camp. Quentin Byfield's line played more minutes, scored more points, et cetera, et cetera. You have younger players coming up who might now get a chance to play a not just, maybe we'll slot them in on the fourth line for a few minutes here, but, not this season, but maybe next season. There's the opportunity for big trades, for free agency targetings. Like, the presence of Anze Kopitar is 20 years, is going on 20 years now. And so, if nothing else, the vacuum created by his departure will not today, but over the next year, there'll be a ton to talk about. On a selfish note, I just think Anze Kopitar, and I've seen this sentiment repeated. I'm not saying anything crazy or unique, but not the most talented, not the most impressive career by, like, the Hall of Fame numbers or whatever. But as far as Kings, Anze Kopitar is the best player to ever play for the Kings. Best player, you know what I mean by best player. He's the best King. Maybe not the best player to ever play for the Kings, but he's the greatest LA King.
I feel like that's almost undebatable, right? Like, I'm sure that you.
I don't think it's terribly controversial.
But, like, yeah, I think it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
And you would know more than me, but, like, if you're asking me from my perspective, I mean, I would agree with that.
Yeah, and I see that nobody's really mentioned it with Kopitar, but I see a lot of people talking about it with Pittsburgh in particular this year. The idea of, like, well, you have to trade them before they're gone so that you can get something. As a fan, I can remember far lesser players than Anze Kopitar leaving this organization for financial reasons, contract reasons, whatever, doesn't matter. Ian LePerriere is the one that leaps to my mind. When they let Ian LePerriere sign in, I think it was Colorado, I'm sure it was financial. LePerriere, I think he got $2 million and he was making $1 million the year before, something like that. But I mean, he was like a bottom 6 player, not a terribly important, easily replaceable, quote unquote. But the team sucked. He was very popular, and letting him go to bring in, a budget replacement was not going to make the team significantly better. And my attitude at the time was, how is it not worth it to just pay him a little bit of extra money to give the fans who are rooting for a team that isn't competitive something more to be happy about? And so if I'm a fan of the Pittsburgh Penguins, or in this case, the LA Kings, and somebody is seriously suggesting to me that Anze Kopitar or Sidney Crosby or Evgeny Malkin or Chris Letang or whomever should be traded so that you can recapture some value to assist the organization moving forward, while I understand the logic behind it, I just say, like, that's not everything has to be about maximizing asset value at every moment. There's something nice to be said about a guy finishing his career, and people can point to Ray Bourque if they want, but my joke about him winning the cup in Colorado was always, it doesn't count. Nobody cares. He was a Boston Bruin. And then now if you're Brett Hull or somebody and you go to a couple teams and you do it a couple times after your long tenured career with one team, that's different. But yeah, if you just skip town in the final 6 months of your career, I don't know, it feels gross to me. So I'm perfectly
The
happy.
only reason to do that with any of those players mentioned is if the player himself says, I want to be moved to try to win a cup somewhere else.
Sure.
And I think with any of those players, I don't think any of them have that mindset, because I think if a Crosby or a Malkin did, they already would have been traded on a team that hasn't been competitive in a few years. But like, that's the only reason, right? If the player says, hey, I would like another opportunity to compete for a cup, your organization is in, or the Penguins are in this place, I feel like I have a better chance. Trade me the Avalanche.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and I suppose the difference is
you show the respect, right?
Bourque had never done it, whereas Kopitar and all the guys in Pittsburgh have done
They've
it
all won,
multiple times.
right? And I think that they've all earned the respect that if they said, hey, this is my preference and here's where I'd like to go, I think all sides would make it happen. I just only really knowing the situation with Kopitar, one, the Kings are not where the Penguins are, right? Like they're further ahead.
Oh, no, absolutely. They're a
playoff
playoff team. Yeah, for sure.
And two, I just don't get the sense that that would be Anze Kopitar's preference if for some reason things went sideways. I think, there's a lot to be said for exactly what you said, which is just like there is value to just saying this is a lifetime LA King. He's done things here that no one else will do with one franchise, and that few other players in league history will have done. And I think it's like we can reflect on it a little bit, but like, man, it's going to be really special to reflect on it when it's all said and done, a year from now.
One of the most emotional moments for me experienced in an arena of any sort was at Dustin Brown's jersey retirement when the Stanley Cup was brought out. I don't know that moment has the same punch if Dustin Brown is traded a year before he retires for, a second round draft pick and a third round play, like, and a third liner. Like,
yeah.
So anyway, that's all right. Moving on then to the Empire Classic. Anze Kopitar did not play in the Empire Classic, but Quentin Byfield did, and Alex Laferriere did, and Brant Clark did. I'm trying to think of other players that appeared on the NHL roster last season. Alex Turcotte, Jeff Malott,
Andre Lee, Akil Thomas, Jacob
David
Overar, Kyle Burrows. A lot of guys kind of in that bubble group, right?
But honestly, for me, the star of the night was Carter George, and I feel like people are probably tired of hearing me talk about how much I like Carter George, but that kid is so impressive, Zach. Just so impressive.
Yeah. I feel like every time he does something, you're like, this will trip him up.
Yeah.
And then he goes out and, makes his first NHL preseason start, stops 26 of 27, denies a 2-on-0, denies a 2-on-1, doesn't even look like he broke a sweat doing it. And you talk to the head coach who legitimately does not talk about goalies, right? Jim Hiller.
Yeah. He's made that very clear.
Yes. He knows where he's out on goalies. He understands he doesn't do it. And he's just like, yeah, this guy gives me confidence when he's in net. And he's a 19-year-old kid who won't play for the Kings this year. Most players of that age, I feel like an NHL head coach is like, yeah, no, it's good to have them in camp, whatever. They get their experience, they move on. This feels like a little different, right? It feels like, man, this guy has made a legitimate impression on so many people with the Kings who make decisions that you're like, I don't know. He just continues to impress.
When he allowed the first goal of the game within the first 2 minutes, I don't remember the exact time of it, but it was very early. And it kind of just beat him high. I'm not sure if it got tipped or deflected or he just wasn't expecting it, but it, came from distance. It wasn't like a really brilliant play or anything. I had a half a second where I was like, oh no, is he going to let in 9? And that's going to be the end of the myth of Carter George. Nope. Stopped everything after that. Not a big deal. Like you said, stopped the 2-on-0, stopped the 2-on-1. I was sitting next to John Kelly most of the game. And I felt bad because he kept asking, questions about different prospects. Where do they come from? What's the book on them? Da, da, da. And I just kept talking about Carter George. It's just he's incredible.
Well,
he's amazing.
He comes from Owen Sound, and don't worry about whoever you ask me about, but Carter George stops the puck.
I mean,
it was cool, man. Like, it was cool, right? Like, these games, it's cool when stuff like that happens. Like, it was cool last year when he came in relief and won that game in Vegas, but like this was different. This was a bigger test for him, and it was just really cool to see, those kinds of moments in the preseason when a lot of times you're just like, all right, let's fast forward, let's get through this. But when you get something like that, you're like, all right, that was pretty cool.
At about 10 minutes through the second period, I started wondering, are they going to pull him out and put Copley in for the second half of the game?
Yeah, same.
And I should have asked this. It didn't occur to me until earlier this morning. I wonder if the plan, or if there was a thought originally to do that, but then he was playing so well that they were just like, yeah, let the kid have it. Like,
I think that the plan was to assign him back to the OHL today, which we'll get to later. And that was why they're like, all right, he's only going to be here for this game. We're going to play the kid. I could be wrong. Like, I don't know that for sure, but that's kind of what my hunch is like, all right, we're going to let this kid play. Now, maybe if he was getting shelled, you pull him for like the confidence, you let Phoenix Copley go in. But I think the plan was to let this guy go, give him his game. Phoenix Copley will play later in the preseason. Like, let's see what the kid has. Like, good opportunity to do it. And man, he was just very impressive.
He was. There were other players who impressed, and honestly, you and I haven't talked about this at great length yet, but somebody called me last night and asked me, all right, early impressions, takeaways from the game, and I said, honestly, I just thought the entire team looked good. I could go down the roster and I'd be 12 names deep before I ran out of things to say. Like, I thought Brustevich and Woolley, for their age, both looked composed, mature, calm, patient, all those words. I thought Turcotte had a great game. He almost had that one.
I thought Turcotte played really well.
Yeah, Turcotte looked great. I thought Malott, for what Malott is and is asked of him, looked good. I thought Hellenius Lee
and he looked good with Turcotte, right?
Yes,
like,
absolutely,
thought,
which is what they're going to play.
Yeah.
Armia, I've seen a lot of discussion about, people complaining that Armia is not going to be a 40 goal scorer. It's like, well, that's not why he's there. So I'm not really worried about that. Muvarari and Burrows looked exactly like Muvarari and Burrows. They were whipping the puck around in the offensive zone. It's, first preseason game. So was it a stifling defensive effort? No, there were some turnovers that gave Carter George a chance to shine. But generally speaking, I thought the entire team looked pretty good.
Yeah, and like, I thought it was really interesting how yesterday we were talking with Jim Hiller. We were at the media availability, and he talked about that group of like 5 or 6 forwards who are on the bubble, and then he played them all on the same 2 lines. It was almost just like, all right, guys, like, you guys know where you're at. Go show me something, and they all did. Like, I thought Andre Lee played well. Like, he played his game, right? He's not a 40 goal scorer, but he plays a simple, heavy game, has some skill. I thought he played well. Jim Hiller highlighted Akil Thomas, and you know what the fan perception is of Jim Hiller to Akil Thomas. Clearly not the case. He was very he went out of his way when asked about that group to say, you know what, I thought Akil played an incredible game, and he wanted to highlight that. And it shows, okay, like, this isn't a bridge burned. There's a path back for Akil Thomas to make the team. And you have Samuel Hellenius gets into a fight, he does his thing. Malott, you have Turcotte, you have all these guys who did what they were there to do. Liam Greentree, I thought looked pretty good as well. Like I thought
Yeah.
he looked more comfortable and more dynamic in the NHL preseason game than the rookie faceoff games, which is a testament to him. Like all these guys who are on this quote unquote bubble, they can't all make the team, but they can make the decision very difficult. And there's a lot more chances to do that. But I can't look at any of those guys and say like, they set themselves back in that game. Like they all, I thought, progressed forward. And that's what you want from like a roster battle.
The only drawback from that game in my mind is that by playing all 4 or 5 guys that are battling for the last 2 spots, I guess, on the roster, they all played so well. I'm not sure that the situation has changed at all.
I don't think it has.
Like,
yeah.
I have no greater insight as to who is the 14th, 13th, or 14th forward on the Kings today than I did 2 days ago. I don't.
No, I completely agree.
And then to your point about Greentree, because this was one player that honestly I did not focus on or notice that often. Logan Brown, Jim Hiller was asked about Logan Brown, and he kind of explained what I think probably happened to Liam Greentree a lot during the rookie challenge is that, he said we put Logan Brown in a bottom 6 role in the Empire Classic. That's not really his role. That's not his game. So yeah, he didn't look like the player that Logan Brown is going to be once the AHL season starts. Same with Greentree, right? Greentree goes from scoring 119 points in the OHL as like the number 1 option and captain of the Windsor Spitfires to being, surrounded by guys he's never played with, being asked to play a system that he's not familiar with. So yeah, he's not going to look like the 119 point scorer night in and night out.
That's kind of what they have to do, right? Like if a
Mhm.
Liam Greentree or a Logan Brown at that point wants to make the team, like you kind of have to stand out in spite of those things. Because if Liam Greentree does make the team, he's not going to be on a line with Byfield and Fiala,
Right.
because that position's not available. Like Alex Laferriere has not only earned that spot, but he has earned that spot for several games for 10, 20. Like even if he is awful, he won't be. But if he's awful for 10 games, he should not be moved. Like he has that credit in his bank that Todd McClellan used to talk about. So he's going to have to learn, a Greentree to break onto this team specifically. Like he's going to have to learn to be LW4 and succeed in that role, right? Like that's just part of it. And same would go for a Brown or in the way that a Andre Lee has done that. Like he's shown, hey, I can play LW4. That's the spot that's open. That's the spot that you have to go out there and try to win. Same with Jeff Malott. Like Jeff Malott is a scorer in the AHL.
Yeah.
But he showed he
6
could be
player,
LW4
exactly.
on any team in the league, right? Like he's a 20, 30 guy on any AHL team. But he could go up and play that role with the Kings because that's the role that's there and that's the role that he has to play to succeed in the NHL.
Every now and then during training camp, there'll be a quote from a player or a coach that I squirrel away and put in a separate folder because I feel like that'll probably come in handy later. That'll be relevant.
Wonder if it's the same quote I'm thinking of here. I want to hear what your quote is.
It's Alex Turcotte talking about being in the meetings, the PK meetings.
Yes, that's exactly the quote I was
because
thinking. I was hoping you would talk about.
Yeah, because moving forward, and you and I talked about it last year during the playoffs, the Kings have used top 6 players as their chief penalty killers. And now, especially with the arrival of UL Armia and with the slotting of the lines, so that now Deneau is very clearly, I think, the 3rd line center or expected to be on this Kings team. I don't know that Armia and Deneau will be a PK tandem. I suspect they probably won't. But Armia played more than 2 minutes on the PK per game, or averaged more than 2 minutes per game on the PK over the last 3 years. That's more than any other Kings forward over the last 2 years. So I'm assuming when the Kings go on the penalty kill, Armia is first over the boards. And then now they just have to figure out who's going to be his center when he's killing penalties. Is it going to be Deneau or is it going to be Turcotte? And before the Empire Classic and our chance to talk to those players, I was not aware that Alex Turcotte was an option for penalty killing. But as we learned from Alex Turcotte, he's been trained and educated and very clearly been included in the conversations about penalty killing. And we saw a shorthanded goal in Ontario. Not the least bit, courtesy of Alex Turcotte. He didn't score it, but a lot of hard work out of him.
For sure.
So, if I had to guess now moving forward, if Turcotte is going to be the fourth line center, I'm expecting at least 3 of the first penalty killing forwards for the Kings in the upcoming season will be Armia, Danault, and Turcotte. And then whether or not it's Byfield and Fogle or Moore or Kempe or Kopitar, I mean, I'm sure Kopitar will play sometime on the PK, but the pressure's off Kopitar, and now Turcotte gets a chance. Maybe I shouldn't. It's still early, but that was news. That was new information to me.
Same. And it was really informative on a few levels because one, so Yoel Armia, fourth in the NHL last season in shorthanded minutes by a forward.
Yeah.
That dude's here to kill penalties.
Yes, that's his role.
And
yes.
Corey Perry, when he is healthy, that dude plays on the power play in front of the net. So the LA Kings last year got 0 contributions on special teams from their fourth line. That is irregular. And part of the reason I think why that line played so little in the playoffs was that they didn't have special teams roles. Like you go to kill penalties, those guys sit there. You go to the power play, those guys sit there. There were a lot of power plays both ways in that series. And those guys would just sit there and then maybe they get out of the flow of the game and then they're just there. And if you can get Turcotte on the PK, that is a way to get him more minutes. It keeps him in the game. And I think it makes that line easier to get more minutes overall
You
at
mean
5-on-5
strength
too.
Yeah, for sure.
And like the Kings have just been too reliant on their top guys to kill penalties. And the way that Turcotte talked about it, he was giddy. Like he was like, I'm so excited. I want to do this. And I think it's a good reflection on the coaching staff too, that they saw this last year and said, hey, we want you in here. We want you to know what you're doing. Now he's not just going in like a chicken with his head cut off. He knows the system. Like he said he was in there taking notes in a notebook. Like that's a really good reflection on Alex Turcotte and on the staff for kind of seeing that in advance and setting him up for success. I thought it's great. Like that's exactly what you want to see. And you want to see that kind of player get more. And this is a way for him to get more without displacing someone in the top 9. It could be a huge win for the Kings.
Do you remember? I think it was not last season, but the season before, after Hiller had been named Todd McClellan's replacement. I want to say there was a game where Turcotte played like the first, 5 minutes of a game or something, and then never again. And people asked why.
So it was last year.
Oh, it was last year.
Last year in his first game off an injury.
Yes, and people were like, "Oh, are you protecting him? Was he benched? Did he do something wrong?" And Hiller's answer was, "No, there were special teams. He wound up not playing for like 10 minutes. Then we went to, intermission. So now it's 28 minutes. Coming out of the intermission, we're not going to put his line out. So now we're looking at like 20 minutes, and now he's cold, and we just didn't think it was fair to put him back in. So he just didn't play for the rest of the game." And it made total sense in that context. You wouldn't think about it, in the moment, which is why the question was asked. But to your point about getting the fourth line more minutes, yeah, if Armia is playing 2 minutes, 30 seconds on the PK every night, his legs aren't going cold on the bench. If Turcotte's coming over the bench on the PK, his legs aren't going cold. And like you said, way easier to put them out there. And not only that, when the power play is done, and you've just run out potentially 5 forwards on the top power play unit, well, now you actually have a fourth line of guys, like I think I was talking to my dad about it and saying like Armia is the first capital R, capital P role player that I can remember on the Kings in a while.
Yeah.
Like he's a role player. Yes, he can, I heard Drew Doughty and some other players in the locker room talking about his sneaky good shot. And I've noticed it in camp. He can wire one once in a while. But I mean, he is here to play a role. He excels at it. He's good at it. He's been doing it for a few years now. And yeah, I'm excited to see it. But yeah, that was the big quote that I have already cut out and put aside in a little folder. Cause I was like, this is going to be relevant eventually.
I think so too.
Yeah. So that was the Empire Classic again. Oh, actually, one last thing about the Empire Classic. When it was 1-1, halfway through the third period, many people had observed that it was a good crowd, big crowd, huge crowd.
Yeah.
And I was starting to feel kind of bad for the crowd because it was 1-1, and they hadn't really had a chance to go crazy because the tying goal people cheered, but it's a tying goal, right? So it's like, okay, it's more of a relief than a celebration.
Sure.
When Laferriere scored the shorthanded goal and the entire building went dark, maybe it happened on the first goal, I don't remember, but the entire building went dark, the spotlights came out, the crowd went crazy. I just was really glad that the fans got that moment to really go nuts, because it was the crowd was into it. They were great last night.
Yeah. That's and like Jim Hiller was talking about that the day before. Like sometimes you go to these games and it's in an NHL building and it's a season ticket holder
Mhm.
comp and then you're forced to have it in your package and no one's buying ticket. It's like it's not full. It's not that energetic because everyone's waiting for the real game, right?
Yeah.
In Ontario, this is their game. Like this is their only NHL game of the year, and it was so obvious how engaged the fans were. Like the fans there are awesome. Like I worked for the Reign for 2 years. Saw that place packed for the Reign so many times, and it was such a good energy. And it was like they just showed out. Like it was an awesome crowd. The game could have been 4-4 when it was 1-1. I was
Mhm.
talking, I was on the other side of John Kelly. That was what we were talking about. Was like it was an exciting game,
Yeah.
but they didn't have, like you said, that moment to just like go nuts. And then they got it and didn't disappoint. Like
No,
just
it was
really
great.
cool to play games there. Like I really enjoy those kind of games to be at because it's just like there's actually like an energy and an excitement in the building for a game that doesn't matter in terms of the final score. And that was really cool.
And the fact that it was the Ducks, right? So the crowd was, I don't know, maybe 75-25 Kings fans, Ducks fans. Maybe 60-40. I don't know. I saw a lot of Ducks jerseys, but the overwhelming amount of people were Kings fans.
Definitely a lot more
Yeah.
Kings, but yeah, like there was it's a local game for both, right? It's an
Mhm.
opportunity. There's definitely Ducks fans, in the
Yeah.
IE, and it was just a good crowd. It wasn't neutral. It was definitely very slanted Kings, but nice to kind of see that energy just overall.
Yeah. And I mean, listen, Trevor Raybone was doing the PA. It was a Kings home game. It was very clearly a Kings game.
Yep.
But no, it was good. So that's the Empire Classic, which brings us to our final bit of business today, and that is we're recording this on Monday the 22nd. This is the first day off of camp for the players, and it made perfect sense. I think plenty of people saw this coming because the OHL season is already underway. Players are beginning to be returned to their OHL teams, so we have a first series of cuts. And you mentioned it already, Carter George returning to Owen Sound. His team's already played one game. I think their next game is Thursday or Friday. I don't remember off the top of my head. And I think Owen Sound won their first game of the season, so no harm, no foul. But eventually,
Wow, without him.
but eventually they're going to want, Carter George.
Yeah.
So, and if you're not going to keep him, which I mean, they're not, right? Like, I suppose
As much as we all want
they could, but the
fun
realistic,
story, yeah.
the reality is Carter George can't play in the AHL.
Correct.
Can't play in the ECHL, can he? I don't actually even know the rules. I'm not sure what the transfer agreement between.
Yeah.
I'm not sure there
It's
even is
possible
one.
that he
Yeah.
could, but at that point,
No, they just let him play in. So anyway, he's not going to play for the NHL club. So return him to Owen Sound. And Jan Hovan is going back to Sudbury. Jimmy Lombardi's headed back to the Flint Firebirds. Nate Corbet is released to the Kelowna Rockets. I always forget
yep.
Kelowna's. I want to say the Thistles because that like
The Thistles.
100 years ago that was the team. I think they won the Stanley Cup once back in like 1908 or something dumb like that. But yeah, so cuts are happening and the camp is getting shrunk down, and this was sort of expected for those who sort of pay attention to things like calendars.
For sure. And it's the first of multiple waves of this, like if you have guys like, say it's a Jimmy Lombardi, he's 18 years old, he just got picked by the Kings, he came to rookie faceoff, played 2 games. I thought he looked pretty solid.
Mm-hmm.
Gets a main camp experience, but he's going to be in the OHL this season. And why not let him get into it and go back and be their number 1 or number 2 center and be an impact player there and develop and play games? There's definitely something to be learned from being around the LA Kings group for a few days. But if he's, get him back, like we all know where he's playing this year. he's a long development curve, right? He's going to college hockey next year with Michigan. Get him back, let him play games. He got some great experience, and that's where he's going to be this year. So get him there. And I think there's still some other OHL guys like you mentioned, Wooly Bristevich. They'll go back at some point as well. But for those guys can maybe get another game too. Like they're a little bit further along, I think in the process. So makes a lot of sense. There will be some more moves, I think, later in the week. And I'd imagine maybe this weekend or like early next week, we see that big wave of cuts that we always see as, Ontario gets underway, because eventually you got to get your group, right? It can't just be 3 groups of practice every day.
Right.
I think later this week we'll see 2 groups. And then by next week, at some point, it's got to be down to 1 group. The Kings have to dive into more NHL focused stuff. So like you said, as you look at calendars, this makes sense and there's more to come.
It's not the most interesting story in camp, but the fact that Jim Hiller and the coaching staff and front office arranged the camp the way they did to start this year in a way that was different from previous years was more interesting than I anticipated. Like I didn't initially even think about the fact that each of the 3 groups had at least one NHL line and one, NHL D pair in it. But it took Jim Hiller pointing out that like last year and the year before, Group A and Group B had all the players, and then Group C was like the first round of, a bunch of guys that you would fully expect to be gone in the first round of cuts.
Yeah.
And you'd think to yourself, well, what is even the point of that? Like, what are we
100%.
What are we inviting 65 guys to camp for if 17 of them aren't going to get into a preseason game, aren't going to be on the ice at the same time as the coach? Like, well, I don't get it. This time, every group, whether it was Kopitar's line, Deneau's line, Byfield's line, CC, Dumoulin, Clark, Anderson, Doughty, Edmondson. I'm sure I'm leaving a name out of there. The goalies are split up. Like every group has somebody in it. And, that'll be over soon. And then, if, like I said, if it's not the most interesting story, but it's unique. It's interesting. And I hadn't even considered it until it was mentioned.
It's something. And he also pointed out, like the Kings invited 8 to 10 fewer players this year, but everyone who was here got a chance to play with the big guys. They got a chance to experience like real NHL training camp. Cause you're right. Like in years past, it was like, okay, groups A and B line, group C.
Yeah. Right.
Group C didn't scrimmage. Group C didn't have Jim Hiller on the ice. It had, it was in almost a early starting Ontario rain camp. And the groups did switch, right? Like guys did move in and out of that group, but you kind of, it was almost like, hey, here's your place.
Yeah.
And this year we knew that Jimmy Lombardi wasn't going to make the Kings, but he got the chance to play with the Kings. And I do think that makes maybe camp more valuable for those kinds of players than what we saw in years past, when there was just this clear separation from day one. That's going to come, but it was kind of nice. I liked the format to kind of see it be a little bit different this year.
Yeah. And, it's funny. Like we saw relative levels. Well, so some players are still moving around different groups. Some days, Group A will have 10 forwards. Some days it'll have 12. Some days one group will have 7 defensemen. Some days they'll have 6. So there are definitely things moving around. And yet we've seen a fairly consistent lines and pairings, in the scrimmages and in the drills. And it led me, and I'm springing this final note on the podcast on you. I didn't warn you. Sorry. I'm going to make fun of myself here because part of the reason I don't like to speculate or make predictions is that it's so easy to get them wildly incorrectly. And so I have held off on doing it, and I didn't hold off yesterday. And what do you know? I was totally wrong. So shame on me. But so Wooly and Brustevich are expected to be a pair in Ontario.
Yep.
They started game 1 in the rookie face-off as a pair, where they were broken up by the end of the third period of the first game, and then they stayed apart in the second game. They have not been a pair for the first 4 days of camp, or 3 days of camp, heading into the Empire Classic. And so when the roster came out and they were both on it, I was like, oh, well, they won't be a pair. It's fine. It's not going to happen. So then let's figure out who is going to be, what the pairs are going to be. Well, Muvrari and Burrows have skated together for 3 days, so that'll obviously be a pair. And, Clark will be with somebody, and, who knows who. But definitely not Jacob Muvrari, because he's been skating with with Kyle Burrows. Anyway, the point is I was wrong across the board on multiple things. I also assumed that Armia, Turcotte, and Malott would skate as a line together because they've been skating as a line for the first 3 days. Anyway, the lesson is don't project, don't speculate, because you just look like a dummy. And you can couch it in all of the maybes and what ifs language you want to try and backtrack and make it look like you weren't predicting. You were just saying, well, maybe, but everybody knows what you're doing. So I look like a dummy, so shame on me. So there you go.
Takes a big man.
Yeah, well, I'm nothing if not a big man. But backtracking.
Well, I look forward to the day that teams dress 3 goaltenders for your.
Yes, well, that
and
also
then
happen.
you could spin around and.
Now, in my defense, I did preface that with the capital. Well, I think I capitalized it. Bold prediction, which in my mind, bold predictions never come true.
That's why they're bold.
Yes, but Bolduc and Brustevich had been skating together in camp, which is why I didn't think Brustevich and Woolley would be a pair in the Empire Classic. But just to backtrack one more time to the Empire Classic, I really liked them as a pair. And I saw more from them in that game than I had either in scrimmages or at the rookie face-off. And I wonder if it's one of those situations, and we've heard it from a number of defensemen over the years, where it's easier to play structured defense at the higher levels because mistakes happen less frequently, plays break down less frequently. Your line mates are, more consistently where they're meant to be executing plays that they're meant to execute. I thought the two of them looked like veterans, not like 19-year-old kids or 18-year-old kids, whatever.
Kind of say like what I did about Green Tree, right? Like I thought they looked better as a pair in the preseason game than the rookie game.
Yeah.
And, maybe there's something to what you said. Like people always used to say, like for some players when I worked in the minor leagues, like it's easier to play in the AHL sometimes than the ECHL because the ECHL has less structure, less systems. There are fewer players, so guys are more tired. And sometimes it can just be like chaotic at times. And the AHL offers less of that. And maybe that's part of the case, right? Like maybe, when they come into the rookie face-off, it's, it's unknowns and you feel like you have a known with your partner, but like it's not always the case. I thought that they looked really composed, in the Empire Classic. Brustevich is just so smooth. Woolley moved pucks well and still offered, kind of his physical defensive brand of hockey.
Yes,
so
he did.
I thought they were pretty impressive. And, if they do maybe get another game, it'll be well-deserved. And I have no intention of watching the OHL this season, but like, if they go on a run again and like, yeah, I'd be interested to watch how they play against their peers because they looked really solid and comfortable against dudes a lot older than they are.
One final note that we did not touch on is that Angus Booth was injured in camp. And that's a shame because obviously we all like Angus, me in particular, like Angus Booth a lot. He had a good season in Ontario, and I think big things were expected out of him this year. From the sounds of it, he's on the same timeline as Corey Perry as far as his return. So hopefully that won't negatively impact his season or Ontario's season too much, but that is another thing that happened in camp. This is day 5. I saw earlier today, I think we're like less than 2.5 weeks out from opening night, which is crazy. You and I talked about this on a previous episode. You mark it on your calendar and it seems like it's never going to come. And then even when camp starts, you're like, oh, well, camp is 2 months long, right? It's like, no, it'll be here before you know it. So I think that about wraps it up though for this one, Zach. Thanks as always for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
And the Kings go on the road now until the final preseason game. I mean, there's a couple that are close by-ish. But, yeah, Vegas, Anaheim, Bakersfield, Boise, which I incorrectly placed in Iowa, which is in Idaho, Utah, and then back in Southern California on the 4th to play the Ducks at Crypto.com Arena. But 5 road games in a row now in the preseason. So good luck to you. Travel safe.
The well-traveled LA Kings.
Yeah.